Coming off a big 2023 college football season in which he led the Texas Longhorns to a 10-2 record and a spot in the national semifinals, where they lost to eventual national runner-up University of Washington Huskies and quarterback Michael Penix Jr. Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers now is prepping for his senior season. He is competing against a pretty good number 2 quarterback, Arch Manning, and he's introducing himself to a room full of brand new receivers. Is Quinn Ewers the best quarterback on Texas's roster, and can he get the Horns back to the promised land in 2024? This is quarterback Quinn Ewers, my take. If this is your first time to the channel, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Quinn Ewers, 6'2", 205 pounds, senior to be. He's from San Antonio, Texas. He played his high school ball at legendary South Lake Carroll High School. And he originally committed to the Texas Longhorns coming out of high school, but then changed his mind and signed with the Ohio State Buckeyes and was a member of their football team in 2021. He played a couple of snaps that year, but nothing to write home about. And then after the season, he jumped in the portal and went back to Austin to play for Steve Sarkeesian and the Longhorns. Ewers won the starting quarterback position in 2022 and led the Longhorns to an 8-5 record, which for a lot of programs across the country, 8 wins is a pretty dang good year. But for the Longhorn Nation, an 8-5 record is somewhat of a disaster. And so this past season, Quinn Ewers and his teammates rebounded and posted a 12-2 record and a spot in the 2023 semifinal playoff games, where they lost a very entertaining game to the Washington Huskies 37-31. Which put the Dogs in the national title game and sent Texas home to get ready for this next season. So as Quinn Ewers prepares for his senior year now in 2024, there are a whole bunch of people in Austin and college football across the country who are interested to see what his encore is going to be. What's 2024 going to mean for Quinn Ewers and the Texas Longhorns? Okay, so today's show is my analysis of Ewers, and this is what my take is. So in the intro, I said, is he the best quarterback on the roster? And I'm going to start off with talking about that. This is basically a two-man conversation when we're talking who's the best quarterback on the roster. It's Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. And I'm definitely not in Steve Sarkeesian's head, but I would imagine that he's thinking somewheres along these lines. You know, on one hand, I've got a guy that is battle tested. He's played in a ton of big games. He had a hell of a season for us last year. He's mature. He's confident. His teammates believe in him. He's got a great resume that he brings with him. And on the other hand, I've got this young guy who is a phenomenal talent, talking about Arch Manning, and has the great situation for me here at Texas where he can learn from an upperclassman. He can get better every day. He can get coached up by me every day. He can learn from me. He can learn from Quinn. I'm going to get him quality reps in practice, obviously, but also he's going to get great reps in games, and those game reps are what counts. And so when Quinn Ewers is done playing, I'm going to hand the keys to the Corvette to Arch Manning, and we're going to go from there. That's what I think Sarkeesian's thinking. I say that Quinn Ewers is the best quarterback at the University of Texas. And I also say that Sarkeesian and Longhorn fans are in a great situation because they got two dudes that can play. Okay, Ewers plays in a QB-friendly offense, and I've talked in other shows about what makes an offense QB-friendly, and it's no coincidence that most of the offenses that you term QB-friendly are usually run by former quarterbacks who understand what it is within the scheme and the system that makes it easier for their quarterbacks to operate and puts them in position to be successful. And Sarkeesian definitely does that. And so some of the components that go into Texas's QB-friendly offense is the fact that their route concepts are really good. I mean, when you watch clips of Ewers, you're going to see that he's throwing to receivers that are open and a lot of times really open. And they use a lot of run fake action in their passing game where they're show and run with the running back. They'll pass pro with the offensive line, but they'll pull a lineman to give the illusion that they're running like a pin and pull scheme up front and running the ball. And what that does is it makes those inside linebackers step up for the run. And so you see Ewers pull the ball, and he's throwing a lot of benders, his quick post right in behind those linebackers who have vacated that hook area by stepping up for what they think is a run play. And Sarkeesian has Ewers do this a lot. So you see him throwing those benders, you see him throwing seam routes, you see him throwing crossing routes. And they're all designed to work that area behind the inside linebackers. And Texas does a whole bunch of this. They remind me a lot of what Georgia does with their offense, University of Georgia, where they run a lot of play fake stuff also with the back and one of the offensive linemen to give Beck, their quarterback, some pretty good grass for receivers to be running in and easy completions. Okay, and then the last thing with QB-friendly offense in regards to Texas and Quinn Ewers is the guy that's calling the plays, the head coach, Sark. He knows how to call plays. There's an art to it, and you can have a great scheme, which he does, but the other part of that equation is you have to know what you're seeing defensively and know how you want to attack it, and then be in the rhythm and flow of the game as to when you call certain plays. You're setting up plays, you're attacking coverage, you're attacking fronts, you're going after weaker defensive players and DBs. That's all part of what goes through Sarkeesian's mind when he's calling the plays. But he's proven in his career as a coach and a play caller that he's one of the best at what he does. And this really serves Quinn Ewers really, really well. Okay, I'm going to stay with Sarkeesian for a second. Quinn Ewers is being coached by a guy who knows how to coach quarterbacks, and it's physical and mental, both of those. And I've talked about Sarkeesian before when I did my show on Arch Manning, but he was a hell of a quarterback in college. He was a JC quarterback at El Camino Junior College in Los Angeles. And then he went and played for BYU. And BYU is like QBU, quarterback university in college football. Playing the position, I think, really goes a long way in being a great quarterback coach, because he's not going to ask Ewers or Arch Manning to do anything that he hasn't done himself when he played. And he also knows how to get up in their head, work on that muscle between their ears and the confidence that quarterbacks have to have, as well as the mental X's and O's game. But that confidence and how you handle egos and personalities at that position. And I'm not, I don't know Quinn Ewers' personality. I don't know if he's an ego guy. I don't know. But I know that Sarkeesian knows that. And so, Quinn Ewers isn't going to be beating his head against the wall, trying to swim upstream in playing for Sarkeesian. They're both on the same page, and Sark knows how to coach quarterbacks. And again, that's another big, big plus for Quinn Ewers. Okay, so last year, Texas had some dudes out there running routes. And I mean, they had some difference makers catching the ball for Ewers, and he lost 3 studs. And so in my intro, I said he's going to be spending, a lot of this offseason introducing himself to the new receivers that they're bringing in. And with the transfer portal the way it is and recruiting, which is just wild, a school that has the resources like Texas, they're going to go out and get guys, and they've done that. Now we just have to see if they can fit into the system and actually mesh with Ewers. But that's going to be a huge question mark for Longhorn fans this year, is how can these new receivers and the guys that are returners but weren't stars last year, how are these guys going to step up to the plate and continue what they had last year with Ewers in the passing game? Okay, here's my analysis of Ewers' mechanics. I'm going to start with his arm. He does not have a really strong arm, okay? He throws a soft football, a soft ball. And there are times where he will put some juice on his throws, but he's not one of those guys that's got a rocket for an arm. So he throws a soft football. Okay, now, a couple things that really jump out at me when I'm watching him throwing the ball. Number one is he is one of the most casual throwers that I've seen in a long, long time. When you watch him on film, and it doesn't matter what route it is, it doesn't matter what's going on in the pocket, what type of throw he's got to make. He is so casual when he throws the ball. It's like it's just easy for him. I don't want to say going through the motions, because he's not, but he makes it look effortlessly when he throws. It kind of reminds me of Aaron Rodgers in that he flicks the ball out there, and it's just, you got some quarterbacks that are violent throwers. An example of a violent thrower is Jeff Garcia, the great quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. Every time he threw the ball, it didn't matter whether he was throwing a swing route or a check down to the back, or he was throwing a dig route where he had to, cut it loose, or he was throwing a vertical. He was violent in his throwing motion. And Quinn Ewers is the opposite of that. Very, very casual. Okay. He has a low arm slot when he throws. Okay. So he's not coming over the top. He's not 3/4. He's lower than that. And as I said, he's got that Aaron Rodgers where he flicks it and throws a soft ball. But here's the bottom line. And this is what's so great about watching quarterbacks, and what is so crucial about coaching quarterbacks, is you don't mess with a guy's throwing motion unless it's causing him problems. And obviously what Ewers does with his arm slot and throwing a soft football, it hasn't hurt him. And so, that's just my evaluation of him throwing the ball. Okay, this is a big one for me. I always talk about this with quarterback play because it's so important and integral to what those guys do every time they draw back to throw. But Ewers has got really good pocket management. In other words, um, if you did a statistical analysis and breakdown of how many times a quarterback in a game takes the snap, goes through his drop, and isn't able to throw the ball in rhythm and tempo, how many times that happens in the course of a game. I'm just spitballing here, but I would guess that you're looking at a quarterback about 40% of the time that he drops back to throw, he has to come off platform before he delivers, which means he can't take his drop, hit that last step, stride, and throw. He's got to climb, he's got to slide, he's got to shuffle, he's got to avoid pressure, he's got to get into a gap or a lane where he can get the ball off and, clearly see his receiver. And by the way, I meant to talk about this before, but this used to be a thing like when I was in high school in the 70s, that your quarterback had to be a certain height so that he could throw over the top of his offensive and defensive linemen. That's a bunch of BS. Quarterbacks don't throw over the top of guys. They throw in between guys. So when you see QBs sliding and climbing, yes, a lot of times they're avoiding pressure, but in a lot of instances, they've got a guy blocking their view of a receiver and they're sliding one way or the other to get into a clear lane to throw the football. Okay, I digress there for a second. Getting back to Ewers' pocket management. The thing that I like about him is when the pocket starts to break down, his eyes don't come down to the rush. Okay. And as soon as a quarterback does that, it's over. As soon as a quarterback's eyes come down to the rush, he has basically committed himself to pulling the ball down and running. And when you watch Ewers on film and on clips, you're going to see that, he may be in a situation where he's dashing. He's behind the line of scrimmage and he's dashing one way or the other, but he's still looking to throw the ball downfield. And that's a great quality for a quarterback to have. That's one of those things that you can coach into a guy. But I also believe that that's something that guys are born with too, is that that poise, when all hell's breaking loose around them, they're able to stay focused on what they're doing and get the ball downfield to receivers or dump it to the back on a check down route. Whatever the situation is, Ewers does a really good job of that. And, with that being said, he can also hurt defenses when he pulls the ball down and runs. He's a good enough athlete that he can do that, but he wants to throw the ball first. And I'm sure if you ask Sarkeesian, he's telling Quinn Ewers, throw the ball first. Let's save the runs, keep it at a minimum. Okay, and then another aspect of a quarterback's throwing that is big with me is how he throws verticals. And Ewers throws great deep balls. Okay, so I've said this before, so I won't go into this in a lot of detail, but he puts a lot of air on his outside verticals. And the reason that you want to do that is you don't have to be perfect with the throw. If you put air under it and you overthrow your receiver, he can use his speed to go get it. If you underthrow him, he can slip the DB, go up and high point it. If you throw the ball flatter and you overthrow your receiver, it's game over. He can't catch up to the ball. And so Ewers does a hell of a job of putting air under the ball. I call it throwing a 3 and just softly dropping it in there for his guys. And if he overthrows him, they can go get it, which they do. Okay, so that's what I like about Quinn Ewers. Now, here are a couple things I don't like about him. Now, this is me, okay? This is how I coached my quarterbacks. This is what I believe in. You know, the bottom line is what works for them within the framework of the system that they're playing for. Okay, so I'm going to start with the least uh, the least bad thing that he does, and that is he carries the ball. His ball carriage is really low. So I think that you should carry it as a quarterback where you've got the tip of the ball at the top of your numbers. Tip of the ball, top of the numbers. And Ewers carries it lower than that. Okay. And here's my issue with that. You always hear me talk about get the ball out of your hand, get the ball out of your hand. Because it's beneficial in so many ways when the quarterback gets that football out of his hand on time. Well, there's also a bunch of stuff that quarterbacks do that I call wasted motion that causes them not to get the ball out of their hand on time. And low ball carriage is one of them, because this should make sense. The lower you hold that football, the further up you got to push it when it comes time to throw. And the longer that you're spending pushing that ball up, as opposed to having the ball here and pushing it up, you know, that's the difference between yak, yards after catch. And that was always a big thing for me. You know, I'm good with a 10-yard completion and the guy gets tackled. I'm really good with a 20-yard completion where the guy catches the ball and runs for 12 yards because we got it to him when he was the most open. Okay. Now, this doesn't hurt Ewers. Okay. He is really quick with that low ball carriage on pushing that sucker up and getting it out. So he compensates for that flaw, according to me, that flaw, by quickly getting that ball up and out. Okay, now this leads me to the biggest problem I have with him, and it's tied in with getting the ball out of your hand late. When you watch him drop, at the end of his drop, he takes a big hop step. Okay, and he's pretty consistent doing this. He even does it when he's showing run action, and then he'll pull the ball. He'll still, a lot of times, take that big hop step. Now, I did a show earlier on J.J. McCarthy where I talked about him doing the very same thing. And I talked about how, and I showed it on film, that because he was taking that big hop step at the end of his drop, he wasn't ready to throw the ball at the end of the drop. So same thing with Ewers. When he takes that big hop, now his platform is wide. And some quarterbacks can throw from that wide platform, but most guys, when they get there, they either have to take that front foot and slide it back, or take that back foot and slide it up to get their feet close to being under their shoulders so they can transfer their weight, properly to that front foot when they release the ball. So Ewers takes that hop step, and you'll see him a lot on routes where he hops and he doesn't slide the front foot or the back foot, but he takes a hitch step up, which in reality is basically the same thing. Okay. And you see him completing balls after balls after balls after balls. And as I said earlier, a lot of these guys can get away with this stuff and still be wildly successful. And he's one of them, and Steve Sarkeesian is a hell of a freaking quarterback coach. If I'm coaching Quinn Ewers, I'm coaching that hop step out of him, because even the balls that he completes, we get the ball out there earlier when the receiver's more open. We're talking yards after catch instead of just catch and tackle. Okay, now I might be splitting hairs on this, and there may be a lot of you out there going, oh, geez, he's splitting hairs. Again, this is my take. That's what I believe in with quarterback play. And again, I want to stress this. It doesn't hurt him at the end of the day. It doesn't hurt him. It's just something to look at here when we're watching clips, taking that big hop step. Okay, lastly, last season we said Texas went to the semifinals in the college football playoffs. And I truly believe that they got there based on their performance in the Big 12 championship game against the Oklahoma State Cowboys. And Texas's offense blew the doors off of the defense that day, the Cowboys defense. And I think that it was that performance by Quinn Ewers and their offense which persuaded the gurus that select the Final Four teams to put Texas in there over maybe another team or two. Ewers was phenomenal in that championship game. He was 35 out of 46 for 452 yards and 4 touchdowns. And that paved the way for the Longhorns to go to the semifinals. That's the type of quarterback that he is, and those are the types of things that he can do within the Longhorn offense. But that leads us now to 2024. And Quinn Ewers is battle-tested, been in a bunch of big games. And as I said earlier, he now is a year older, a year more mature, a year wiser, a year more game experience under his belt. He's seen everything, every defense, every coverage. He's been hit in the mouth. He's picked himself up off the ground. He's handled adversity. And now we go into this season, and it's going to be fun to see what he does with the Longhorns this year. Drop me a comment down below, guys, and let me know what you think of Quinn Ewers. Is he an elite quarterback nationally in college football? And give me your thoughts on the 2024 Texas Longhorns. How do you see their season shaking out? Okay, that was my take. Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers. This is QB Unfiltered. And remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.